Hey, Channel Insiders. Welcome back to Channel Insider Partner POV. I'm your host, Katie Bavoso, and today we're going back to school with Nathan Davidson, Vice President of Partnerships at 5-Star Technology Solutions, an exclusively K-12 vertical solution and service provider. We dig into what it takes to serve the EdTech space, navigating tight budgets and constantly shifting local politics, all while prioritizing the needs of our future leaders, students. Welcome, Nathan.
It's great to be here, Katie. Thanks for having me.
It's great to see you again, Nathan. We were just catching up and doing some video work over at Scale Computing Platform, so I'm thrilled to be able to see you again so soon. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's good to be with you, especially for a second time. So Platform was so fun. It's like, why not hop back in the virtual room here and continue the conversation, right?
Right. We should make it a monthly thing. We can have these monthly meetups just to make sure that we keep the momentum going. Because I feel like every time we talk, I learn something really exciting about you. You make me laugh. And I'm like, I leave this conversation feeling better than I did coming into it. So I'm just going to reschedule you every month on the calendar now.
I would be up for that. The world needs more Katies. So you're a joy to be with.
Thank you so much. Now the audience understands why I love talking to you. They totally get it now. Well, I am so excited for more than just the reason that I get to talk to you in general today, but I think that what you do, Nathan, is so cool. And I'm such a big fan of 5-Star Technology Solutions. So I want to start out like hearing straight from the horse's mouth for our audience. Give us a little rundown of who you are and what 5-Star Technology Solutions is. You're based in Indiana, I believe. Yes. So talk to me about who you are over at 5-Star Technology Solutions.
My career has been in education. So I'm an educator at heart. I have been in the EdTech sphere or arena for about 30 years. For a while, I was wondering if that was actually going to be my pathway. I thought my plan was to be a social studies teacher and coach baseball and basketball and be with kids. I found out early on after I graduated college that becoming a social studies teacher was actually a very difficult thing. It was challenging. The number of people wanting to teach social studies outweighed the number of positions. So it was challenging. And I can remember putting on my suit and going out, dropping my resume off because we didn't really have a digital way to do that at that point. It was handed off or snail mail. And I had zero return calls, zero opportunities to interview. So I actually worked in a retail store. It was called Incredible Universe. It was a Tandy company. So it did not last very long, but it lasted long enough for me to gain some experiences there, selling computer technology, getting some leadership position experience. And then I got a call from a friend of mine who was an assistant superintendent and said, hey, we need a technology coordinator. That was at a small rural school district on the east side of Indianapolis, Eastern Hancock School Corporation. And I got the job. I was the only person that interviewed. So I don't know if anybody watching this has had that before. But I would say that can sometimes be a red flag. But even though that was a tough year, it was a blessing for me to have an experience, get my foot in the door, so to speak, learn a lot. And that led to 17 years in 4 different school districts in central Indiana, working as a technology coordinator, an educator, technology integration specialist, and eventually an IT director or CTO. So since then, I've been in the corporate sphere for about the past 12 to 13 years. So 10 plus of those at 5-Star. So that's me. 5-Star itself as a company is I think a very special organization, very special group of people. So 5-Star actually celebrated its 20th birthday. So 5-Star's turned 20 in 2025, born in 2005, if you're doing the math. And our founder was a network engineer, and he noticed that schools really couldn't afford one of him in every school. And just simply didn't have that capacity. So he stepped out and started 5-Star Technology Solutions. So over the past 20 years, I would say the root of the company started in IT services. So from what we call an engineering standpoint, so the folks that really roll up their sleeves and get into the network closet, the server infrastructure, the virtual infrastructure, grew into tier one technical support, and also grew to provide professional development services for teachers that are working directly with students and teachers, and also staff evaluation software and data analytics. The data, those tools that really drive continuous improvement. And we've evolved a number of other services since then, but I think that gives those watching this the gist of who we are. And the heart of who we are is to serve K-12 schools, although we certainly have some SMB customers, so we're not limited just to K-12, but we definitely have an affinity, a heart for schools, and I think that's part of what makes us unique.
I love that. And I think anybody listening to this, when we talk about verticals that we serve, they're all so important. We're all so passionate about each of them individually. But I really doubt that anybody listening to this doesn't have a special soft spot for K through 12 and speaking about that market, because
Sure.
As you and I have spoken about before, we're talking about the future of America, the future of the world.
Absolutely.
And it's so exciting to think about the ways that we impact the kids of today, the adults of tomorrow. And I think it's so important to really never lose that kind of concept, because it's bigger. It's bigger than you and I. So love what you guys do. Love hearing about it. First of all, why social studies? I have to ask, why a social studies teacher in particular?
That's a great question. So my mom was an educator. She taught Spanish. My dad had an affinity for history. So he was a big Trivial Pursuit fan, Jeopardy, and all that. He was more well-read than I was. But I think going into college, first of all, I honestly didn't know what I wanted to do. Secondly, when I transferred from Wabash College to Indiana University, I had a friend who was also going into education. I thought I was going to go a business track. So just because I don't know, I felt something inside of me, wanted to be in the corporate sector. But the more I listened to him, I thought, I think I'm gonna try education. So I actually got a computer endorsement, and I think combined the interest in history to where I thought, well, if I'm going to teach, I want to teach something that I'm interested in. So that became history. Many history teachers are coaches. So I think that connection is still true today. Not all, but many. So that's really kind of where it went hand in hand. But interestingly enough, my pathway into K-12 schools was through that computer endorsement.
Wow.
So it prepared people to code a little bit, and it prepared you to be fluent in certain multimedia applications. So again, I'm going to date myself, but we used Linkway and HyperStudio. So please Google those, Katie. So that's what I did. It did not prepare me to manage a budget. It didn't prepare me to troubleshoot a network or troubleshoot a PC or a Mac for that matter. So it was a lot of learning on the fly. I'm a little off your question there, but that's the connection to social studies. I never had the chance to apply it, but that's the background. It was to be a social studies teacher and a coach.
Well, now I know that every event that we go to, if there is one of those trivia nights nearby, you're on my team 100% if you're at the same event as me, Nathan. So
I will do my best. So
Nathan, going on from there, I want to know when you consider your time that you spent actually inside of the schools, as the CTO, how do you think that better prepared you for taking on a job like you are now with 5-Star Technology Solutions? I know that you went over kind of that shift that you had during your period of education, but what I'd like to know is really, what did it open your eyes to that you think allowed you to be able to enter the door into the world where you now support the U's of the country who are working now in the closets as the CTO, working to help keep the network up and running at schools? What did it open your eyes to that you said, I didn't know this was going on, and this isn't something I would have known from the outside?
That is a fantastic and massive question. So it really is very good. First of all, I don't think that there's any replacement for experience, authentic experience. There is a lot that you can learn from the outside about what someone in that role is responsible for, what they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. But there's nothing that prepares you better than being in that position. And that position in schools, it has had a really interesting evolution from where it really started as if you were a science teacher or a math teacher, you kind of got tapped on the shoulder to, hey, we need a technology coordinator. That was the early role. The director of technology, the chief technology officer role is just well beyond that. Those individuals are responsible for continuity of learning, the maintaining of technology operations, the security of data, the safety of kids. And, if you think about it, as the world has moved more digital, almost anything that plugs into a wall, that individual, it all points back to them, to that person, that man or woman. And it is a position that is incredibly demanding, can be thankless at times. And honestly, the other part, in terms of what's enlightening, I think the most enlightening part is the politics that plays into that position. When you look at an organizational chart and how a school corporation values that person, sometimes that person isn't at the cabinet level. They are maybe a level removed and they're not at they don't have a seat at the table per se. So I feel like that becomes a problem because you're essentially saying, well, that person is really just needs to be a yes person, do what we ask you to do or tell you to do, versus we value you as a leader and we want your input and you need to be involved in those conversations that span the entirety of our enterprise, whether it's instructional, whether it's technical, whether it's involving security, whether it's involving community. So that person should be a leader. I think the enormity of that role, the responsibility, really the stress that goes with it, was probably the most enlightening thing. What I will also say is when that position is done well and there is a good leadership team, there's a positive culture in an organization, then that person can really have an amazing experience and can bring extreme value to not just teachers and students, but to a community. So it's a role that is mission critical in schools. So for those considering it, you can't go into it lightly. And I'm proud, even with one of these pins here, to be a board member for COSIN, which is Consortium of School Networking. That's the leadership organization that is involved in EdTech policy in Washington, D.C., and also creates state chapters that support those CTOs, both the prospective and current CTOs. So, I couldn't speak more highly of the value that those roles bring, Katie, but also the enormity of what those individuals are responsible for.
And let's talk more about those responsibilities, because
Sure.
It's important to me that those listening to this that may not interact with the K through 12 vertical understand the technology side of it. Because if you talk to somebody like me who went to school in the 90s and the early 2000s, where I would say it was very analog compared to probably just starting to go into the realm of being more digital during that time, what are some of the responsibilities that a lot of these CTOs and IT leaders within the schools are tasked with that they turn to you for? I'd love to kind of paint a picture of what exactly are we talking about when we think about technology in these school systems?
I think I can answer that two ways. One is the part of the history of who a school corporation would hire for that position. Typically, when you hear a title that has chief technology officer or IT director, chief information officer, you think somebody technical, right? So somebody with a technical background should be proficient in maintaining the network, keeping it updated, keeping it secure, right? Those individuals most likely do not have a background in curriculum and instruction, which directly impacts the classroom. Those individuals also might not be the most personable people. They might not be the most adept at building relationships. And there also now is an evolving need for developing vision and really having leadership skills. So I think that there are technical skills that are involved in that position. There also are leadership skills that are involved. And, again, I can make the connection to COSIN, being leader as an organization and helping those in that position acquire those skills. But it's very, very important that whoever is in that role is well-rounded. And so I'm going to be in that role, and I'm going to bring a background, and I'm going to bring some strengths to the table. But my background being instructional, so I'm able to bring vision to the table. I'm able to understand what is needed in the classroom. And whereas I have some technical aptitude, I don't have that like someone else might who went to college with a computer degree, right? And who achieved maybe some network level certifications, some industry certifications. That's not me. But to make the connection to that position and what someone would look to 5-star for, it would be to fill some of those gaps. So someone in a CTO position might say, well, I don't have the dollars to hire multiple network engineers or multiple tier 1 technicians. So I need to have somebody that really understands my needs as a school corporation, that has that experience and can give me that expertise that I can just pay a fraction of that cost, but have somebody provide that safety net or an efficiency of resources where I don't have to hire a number of people. I can just use 5-star to be my support, to be my trusted advisor, and provide the layer of technical skills and a consultative trusted advisor approach that help me be successful in my job. That's what we do.
Speaking of being successful in your job and helping those that rely on you to be successful in theirs, I'd love to dig into more of the challenges that you see those schools facing. And one of them that comes to mind immediately is budgets. We're talking about public institutions that are probably very budget constrained, now more so than ever. When it comes to working with budgets at schools, is there anything that 5-star is able to do to kind of help stretch them? How do you work with a budget like that? And for those listening that don't work in that vertical, what's often impacting that budget? Where do they come from? So why do you have to really consider how you're making every dollar go the longest way it possibly can?
Sure. And that's 100% a reality in schools right now. And, the funding mechanisms are multifaceted, but typically they are coming from local property taxes. So that's allocated, the state provides those dollars to school districts. The way our state in Indiana, where we're located, is set up is, the local entities actually have the ability to offer or go out for referendum, to have the community say, hey, we want to put our dollars towards this particular project. Typically, that's construction. When you have that, there's technology involved in it. The states will offer grant funding. There are federal dollars that are also available either on a competitive basis or that's based on your free and reduced lunch population. So many different funding mechanisms. Some are more fixed, some are more variable. So that poses some challenges, of course, right now in the climate at the federal level with the uncertainty of what the current administration is going to do with the federal Department of Education. Naturally that filters down to making superintendents or local entities a little more, hesitant about, well, where are the dollars going to come from? In my experiences over time, there are always dollars. I understand that there is, currently some uncertainty there within the political climate. But that typically sorts itself out. So I think that we'll see that. I think in terms of where 5-star helps or where schools would turn to us, we actually, and we've said this publicly, we typically put people before profit. So because we care so much about schools, it's not necessarily that we're the lowest price. However, we really try to be mindful. In fact, we had a superintendent tell us 5-star is the most fiscally minded company they've ever worked with. And that's a really big deal. When you have a superintendent tell you that, that's a big deal. And I fully believe it's because how we partner with schools and how we listen, we hear, hey, we have budget constraints. And whereas we might not be able to be the lowest, the services we offer, we try and offer the best quality service that we know solves a real problem that schools have in terms of capacity and expertise. And we try and make sure that we do that in a budget, an ed tech or an EDU budget friendly manner. So fixed monthly cost. We have some partners that are in the financing space. So if it's a capital expenditure and there's a refresh they need that's $500,000 and they can't do it now, we can work with other companies to try and stretch that out with a lower interest rate. So just a couple of examples of how we try and accommodate the challenging budgets that schools have.
I know it would be so easy to advocate and say you absolutely, to the public, I should say, you absolutely should understand of where all this money goes and you should care about that when it comes time to vote or when it comes time to talk about taxes. But for you, is there anything that you would tell the public within those school districts of just what to consider their dollars are going to when I'm sure there are school meeting nights where people stand up and they're like, I don't understand why things cost this much or where these dollars are going. Is there anything that you would tell the communities in those areas about what it is that you need to really focus on with these technical aspects and why it's important to really prioritize them?
Two things about that. One, and I've fallen into this trap myself. You see a school build a massive athletic complex, and you think, well, if dollars went there, why can't that go to something else? Classroom technology. Optics are one thing, reality is another. So, the truth is that there could have been sponsorship dollars that went towards the building of that facility, and those dollars were not to be used for something else, right? It could have been there is a budgeted fund that's specifically for a certain project, and there isn't latitude for those dollars to go somewhere else. So perception is not always reality. So that's one thing I would say. Number two is, if there's another company that says that, oh, well, yeah, we support the K-12 vertical or we sell into K-12 schools, well, that may be true. But if your company's just about dollars and profit, you have to keep in mind that ultimately, if that's the case, you're taking dollars away from kids. And that's when you follow that paper trail, so to speak, that's really ultimately what happens. So it really, really upsets me when I see school districts that, make a choice to give their business to someone or some entity that, just isn't in it for those reasons. And that upsets me because that ultimately that's dollars away from kids. It's dollars away from teachers and classrooms. And that's disappointing when that happens.
And I appreciate you pointing those things out because it's important to me when I think about where budgets come from. We're often thinking about private corporations. We're thinking about companies that are small businesses where it's very easy to see where the money comes from because it's coming from the revenue. But when it comes to schools and organizations like that, I like to really paint the picture for those listening who are considering what actually has to go into this. And it's a much more dollar by dollar focus than I think many people realize. So going on from there and kind of shifting towards other things impacting your realm right now, what about technology when it comes to the school systems that you're working alongside at the moment? What trends are you implementing, avoiding, finding really challenging? Talk to me a little bit about, are you seeing AI in the space and how are you handling that? How are you helping the schools be educated and knowing how they should be using it or shouldn't be using it?
Big crystal ball question. And the short answer is yes, absolutely. AI, probably the biggest buzzword, if you will, in education, biggest gray area in education. First of all, we started at the classroom level. So our professional development team is phenomenal. They're all former educators, all licensed educators, all very proficient with technology, but with a full mastery of instructional best practices and pedagogy. So we've really started there. So it's really, we've tried to build professional development programs that school districts can take advantage of that will help prepare teachers to use it and administrators as well. We also, on the back end, are looking more and more into, well, how can we prepare schools from a technical level how to handle that. What are ways that could be leveraged to help IT directors, network engineers become more efficient. It won't replace jobs. That's one thing I'll have to say. In some cases, it certainly could, but AI is a very, very powerful tool for those willing to embrace it and use it. So I think from a technical lens, I know internally, we've got some people doing a lot of R&D on that, are already implementing how it can, help us efficiently create scopes of work. So, different methods like that, but really it's going to be the power of what you ask it to do. So if you're good at creating good prompts, then the output is going to be reflective of that. But it's definitely something right now that schools are very mindful of, trying to get their hands around, not only from a use case, but also from a policy standpoint, because again, it has classroom implications, it has administrative implications, it has security implications, it also has community implications. So, and school districts have to, embrace AI from all of those lenses.
Nathan, I'm so curious about when I think of your time spent at 5-Star, you perfectly fall right on that half the time before, half the time after the pandemic. If we're judging the pandemic just by the year of 2020, which of course we're not, but when we consider everything that happened during that time, what did you notice to be the biggest change between the before and the after where we are now? And how does that consistently continue to impact your job every year? Are you seeing the speed of innovation happen faster than it has? Are you seeing more of a jump into new technology, more of a hesitancy? How has just that kind of world shifted since before the pandemic?
The pandemic was the act of God that many of us, myself included, just because of my background, working with educators, seeing the positive impact that technology can have. But without that particular moment and that particular act of God, so to speak, there were many people that, could essentially choose not to use it. The pandemic was that catalyst that forced schools that were hesitant or kind of dragging their feet. Everybody then had to purchase devices, get devices in kids' hands, move to remote learning. And what we saw, and we were, I think, uniquely positioned to see this, is those and many of those schools that were working with us, I honestly felt had an advantage. And I would say if you talk to some of them or all of them, they would probably agree that they were ahead of the curve. They were prepared for that because they had already provided devices to students. They had already started professional development on how to implement some form of remote or blended learning. So when the pandemic hit and we had to shift to full remote instructions, it was challenging. And yeah, it wasn't perfect, but the schools that had already started down that path were much more prepared than others that had to be more reactive to it versus proactive. So I think from there, that was a positive catalyst, probably painful for many students, parents, and educators at that time, but it forced the issue, and that trends continued. So technology has had to play a key role. And I know in Indiana, 95+% of students all have devices. I think the side effect to that, though, is the funding piece you mentioned, because through the pandemic, the ESSER dollars, helped fund a lot of the technology that went into that. Those dollars have dried up, but the technology is here. At this point, it's getting close to the place where it's outdated and needs to be refreshed. Well, are those dollars there? Maybe not in a lot of cases. So now the mindset is there, I think, for schools that they need to leverage technology, that there's some positives there, but it's honestly got them questioning now, well, can we afford to replace every student device? Do we need to look at moving back to a cart-based model where there's just a set of devices in certain classes? So I answer that question a number of different ways, but the pandemic was 100% the catalyst that left schools no other option as to provide devices to move into a world of remote learning, and learn some lessons along the way. But I also believe that for the most part, that has been maintained, and it's going to continue to do so. Right? I mean, technology is not going anywhere. We've seen the trend up and to the right in terms of the capabilities of technology and what the possibilities are. And the challenge in schools is continuing to rethink our educational model and moving more further away from the factory model and just allowing technology to better accelerate learning and have kids learn at their own pace and make it more personalized. So technology will absolutely be the driver for that.
I'd love to hear a success story that you like to point to when it comes to really showing this is exactly the kind of example that we show people when we talk about what 5-star technology solutions is really great at and the value we provide. Knowing that these are sensitive organizations, we're talking about schools, you don't have to name anybody, but is there an example that comes to mind when you think about that is such a success story to me?
There are a couple that come to mind, and I'm not going to name the school, but kind of back to the pandemic question. It's a school a small rural school that we had partnered with for a number of years, and they were, with our support, earlier to adopt what we would call one-to-one, meaning every student has a device. That device typically goes home and is used to, access the internet and a number of web-based curricular resources. That district, when the pandemic hit, told us multiple times that they would not have been able to make that transition as smoothly had they not had 5-star as a partner. And I have to give that corporation credit, both from a leadership level, the vision of multiple superintendents to take the leap, the willingness of teachers to embrace it. So, we were partners, and we locked arms with that school district, and to hear that from them, knowing that we had that positive impact, meant the world to us. So that's one example. And I'd say there's a more recent example of when school districts see us as a partner that, we're not there to take. We don't want the job of a CTO or a network engineer, whoever the technology leader is of the school. We just want to support that person. And we had another partner that you're familiar with, Scale. I'll name the partner, but it's a district that partnered both with us and with Scale and called us the ideal partnership for him. And, Katie, when you hear that, you don't always hear it. It's easy to hear the negative of, oh, well, you didn't do this, or, hey, why did you push this update out during the school day, something like that, which, by the way, we really, really try to avoid. And we know we're not supposed to do that. But, hey, sometimes things, don't go the way we want them. So, we try and respond to that positively. But when you get, unsolicited positive feedback from a technology leader, it's really validating that you are doing good work and you're doing something right. So those are the examples. Those are the two that come to mind. I've got some others, but those are the two that I would share with you.
Speaking of unsolicited feedback, you did mention Scale Computing as a partner that you feel has really been supporting 5-star technology solutions. Are there any other vendors that you would shout out right now as far as being able to know exactly how to support you and support the K through 12 vertical?
This is somewhat of a loaded question, because if I don't name someone and they watch this video, then I'm going to be asked, hey, how come you didn't cite me? Yeah. We have multiple partners that we work with, and I think that we try and distinguish between a strategic partner like Scale Computing and other partners that are resale partners, but maybe we haven't built the momentum or the relationship that we'd like to have. But I would say HPE Aruba is in that category. I would say Promethean and Smart and Audio Enhancement are in that category, simply because they understand what partnership is, and they understand that communication both ways is important, that collaboration is important, that we need to share capital and resources, right? That we're committed to each other, committed to who we serve in K-12 schools. So I think those are the examples of partners that I would put in that category. I would say Scale is the exemplar, though, simply because we know that they emphasize partnerships. We were honored to be named North American Partner of the Year. and, just thrilled about that. But it's a testament to how we've worked together, how we've communicated, collaborated, shared resources, the commitment we have to each other. It's a shining example. So it's not just about the revenue and the profit. It's just the synergy that we have, and we just like each other. It's great people, and people are a big part of that. So everybody that I mentioned, those, and again, if somebody's watching this, one of our partners is watching this, and I didn't name your name, please don't take that personally. But all those companies have really, really good people, so that helps.
I think to narrow down that question a little bit more is just for those who are watching, for those vendors who are watching, even for those partners who want to work with you in the future in any capacity are watching, what's something that they can do or understand to better serve a partner like 5-Star Technology Solutions, and especially to better serve and better understand the K through 12 space? Is there any advice that maybe you have for them, for those who, we again don't have to name names, but for anybody who might be missing the mark, what's one way that they can get closer?
Two things. One, I would say understand who you are as a partner. And for those watching that have not looked into Teresa Caragol's resources or her book, Partnering Success, I would highly encourage that first, because that is going to inform that individual or that organization about what true partnership looks like. The second part of that is something just that we have homegrown, is this is not trademarked or copyrighted, but the 5 C's of partnership. And I would say you have to think about collaboration, communication, capital, sharing of capital, commitment to each other and to who you serve, and establishing collective trust. So if you look at it from those 5 C's and the lenses of what each of those entails, that's what we look for. So when we look at new partners, and we have companies daily, if not weekly, that I'll get something in the inbox or a voicemail. Hey, Nathan, I just wanted to reach out. I saw you serve K-12 schools, and we would love to talk about partnership. And I always think, do you really understand partnership, or do you just see us as a pathway to grab dollars from schools? And so we actually have an internal process that we're refining, where we're looking at prospective partners if, we do some research and we think it's interesting enough to have a conversation, but we're looking at it from the lens of those 5 C's, and then also from a technical lens as well. So we have to do that again, because if we are partnering with a company and we are putting that company in front of our schools, we're actually putting our own reputation at risk. So for K-12 schools that partner with us, and we're bringing folks like Scale Computing or Aruba or whoever in front of them, it's because we've done the homework, and there should be the collective trust that's there, right?
Absolutely, 100%. And I always enjoy hearing about your 5 C's and the steps on that. So I'm very privileged to have heard that before. And I was waiting for it to come out, and it still resonates just now. So thank you so much for that, Nathan. So looking to the future, Nathan, what's next for 5-Star Technology Solutions this year? Anything exciting coming up for you, and anything that the community that's listening can support you with?
What we're most excited about is, so where it's 20 years of the birth of 5-Star, it's also this month, the 1-year anniversary of what we'll call, just for the industry term, the acquisition of Empower Learning. It's much more than an acquisition, because this company is perfectly aligned with, when we talk about partnerships, just the perfect definition of that, except now that they're actually a company that's a 5-star brand, it's beyond partnership. So we're wanting to, I think what we're most excited about is not only our collective synergy as a 5-Star and Empower Learning team, but taking the partners within both of those brands, finding more creative ways to get the word out there. And Katie, you're giving us a platform to do that, and we're grateful for that. But we want to get in front of as many people as we can, whether that's a webinar or a lunch and learn or a social event. We love sports. So, you're going to see us at Wrigley Field and Great American Ballpark, and even coming to districts and meeting schools where they're at. We're trying to do that not just in the Midwest, but really all over the country. So I think we're excited about that. I think we're excited about the way we've designed our services to bring efficiency and cost savings and capacity to schools. So, and keeping up with the current, trends in education and helping to provide being the trusted advisor that superintendents and CTOs need.
Well, Nathan, there's so much more that I want to ask you, but in the interest of time, where can we learn more about 5-Star Technology Solutions so that those who are listening can come and talk directly to you to find out more?
You bet. So 5startech.com is the web resource. There's plenty there. You will find our YouTube channel there. We're on all socials: Facebook, LinkedIn, X, Twitter. I'll call it Twitter because that's what I called it. So we're all over there. There is plenty of information on our website about our services, about where we're going to be on our events page. So I would just encourage anyone to go there. So I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. So if anybody wants to connect with me, I'm sometimes a pathway into the company and learning more. So happy to chat with anyone who wants to learn more about 5-Star and Power Learning and what we do and who we serve.
Nathan, thank you so much for your time today. It's always a pleasure getting to catch up with you, but I'm so excited that we got to do it for a longer period of time and talk more about 5-Star Technology Solutions today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're the best, Katie. It's so fun. Thanks again for the platform and the opportunity to talk with you. So I will absolutely look forward to the next time we get to chat.
Oh, we are going to chat again every month, like I said.
Can't wait. Oh, every month. That's right. Hey, let's call it.
Thanks so much to Nathan for joining me today, and thank you for watching or listening. You can check out every episode of Channel Insider Partner POV on channelinsider.com, or watch us on YouTube at youtube.com/channelinsider_news and trends. You can also listen to us as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow wherever possible so you never miss an episode. Come connect with us on social media on LinkedIn or X at Channel Insider, or with me at Katie Bavoso. Once again, I'm your host, Katie Bavoso, and I'll see you next time.